Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to Keeping It Real. And I am very excited because I am here with John Schnepp and Holly Payne, the director and producer, respectively, of that movie right there that you guys have been hearing about and loving for so long, The Death of Superman Lives. What happened? You know what the movie tells you? Because I saw it the other night. It tells you what happened. It's amazing.
Right. That was the goal.
That was the goal. Mission accomplished. I wanted to talk to you. I loved it, by the way, and you should get excited for seeing it. But what I wanted to talk to you guys about that I thought was really interesting was that not only, and we were talking about this in the office, not only is it incredibly informative about this project, but it also sort of gives you a look at Hollywood and how development hell really happens. And it's like you really feel like you're getting this inside look of like just the dross of the studio system and how millions of dollars can be spent on a project that ultimately people probably know they're not going to do.
Yeah.
Can you guys talk about that a little
I'll
bit?
let John field
was that
this
kind of
first.
like, did you have that revelatory experience?
Well, it was a very slow process, but yes, eventually. But I also understand the studio system and the mechanics therein. When you get inside the machine, then you're part of the cogs, and it's just a machine, and it makes sense when you're inside of it. You're like, well, it's a process, and this is how it goes. Especially with giant properties like Superman or Batman. I mean, you have a lot of checks that you have to check off before you have to check with these people and these people and these people before you even move forward. And then when you start to get bounce back, back then, bounce back was like a little bit more internet, friendly than it was, back when like Michael Keaton was Batman, because a lot of people were like, "Why are you getting Beetlejuice as Batman?" and freaking out.
Letters they wrote. What was it?
Yeah, tons of letters.
50,000 letters.
Yeah, but letters are just easier to, and nowadays we're in the internet, like now in 2015, like Ben Affleck just went through that rainstorm. And then of course, the minute that movie comes out, even now the tide is shifting, but the minute that movie comes out, they're all gonna be on his tip, believe me. They're gonna be like, Ben Affleck is Batman.
And the same thing just happened with the Joker and the tattoos.
Totally. It's a flip. It happens all the time though, but people, we have such a short-term memory, people forget, everyone hated on Heath Ledger when he was originally announced as the Joker. It just happens. Even like, I'll say Christian Bale wasn't universally hated when he was like, Christian Bale's gonna be Batman. Everyone was like, about time.
Yeah.
You finally got someone that we were all saying, get him as Batman for like the last 10 years. But with Nicolas Cage's Superman, it felt like that was the same kind of vibe that people were getting. They were like, he's not the person that we see as Superman, because up until that point, it was Christopher Reeve.
Yeah.
So there wasn't like a Superman to fill that role. Tim Burton as well, so.
And he has such a different, I was just telling actually our producer, Kyle, one of the really fascinating things for me, and I don't want to give anything away, but was watching him in this footage kind of preparing, not so much just about the costumes, but preparing to be this character.
You can see it in his eyes.
Yeah. And his take on Clark Kent, it breaks my heart that I didn't get to see that.
Yeah.
It was so interesting.
Yeah, interesting, humorous. It made total sense. Like, no one would believe this guy would be Superman. When he said that, it's like, that is such a perfect brand new take and a way to play Clark Kent, where he is
As
actually
kind of a geek.
Yeah, and that was the melding of Tim Burton and Nicolas Cage's take on that character. It was just, that was the two of them coming at it from a completely left field perspective. That we'll never see that because it's not going to happen. But
Right.
But yeah, we've never seen Clark Kent portrayed.
Well, this was
that
just
way
a more
before.
humanized way of looking at the character Superman and taking him into account that most geeks, when they were growing up, in the 70s or 80s, even the 60s, they were like bullied, and they were the outsiders, and they were the ones who were made fun of. And by making Superman that guy, you've instantly connect with, in a way that they've never been able to connect with Superman, because he's a god, he's super powerful, he's too powerful, even though he's an alien.
Yeah.
So it's all these things that like nerds just can't really relate to, but they can relate to feeling as an outsider.
Yeah.
They can relate to feeling like I don't fit in,
Right.
I'm an alien.
It's like the Clark Kent is the social pariah, alien, and then you've got Superman, who's the actual alien.
Yeah.
But the two, there are so many parallels in those stories that it's.
And either way, it's an outsider, right? Because he is an actual alien, but if somebody is so far superior, which I think that you are alien then too. Either way, you don't fit, which I think is one of the more interesting things about what this movie revealed about what that exploration was going to be.
I think they were able to take a little flavor from that and put that into Man of Steel, which I loved Man of Steel. A lot of the moments, some people get all weird about, the ending with the, multiple 9/11s and just like so much mass damage. And I think we'll see the repercussions of that I like the way the new DC cinematic universe is forming. So for me, that Superman, just like what Superman Lives or any of these different versions of Superman, they're just different iterations of a character that's been around for 75 years. Just like in the comic books, you have someone write a 6 or 12 issue series and then a brand new writer or artist come on and change it completely. That's what comic books are all about, are reviving and rebooting these characters constantly to make them fresh and new for the new people. So I don't see why movies can't do the same thing.
Yeah, no, they absolutely can. There's so much in it, and I want to talk about this too because it's so easy to look at an image, and we do it all the time. We were just talking about that, right? And go, grrr, that's the worst idea. But this is really.
I'm not gonna lie, totally had that reaction to Jared Leto when I saw, not to Jared Leto as a person, as an actor, but when I saw that image, I was just like, oh my God, it's a Hot Topic nightmare. And then I saw the Suicide Squad image, and I was like, oh, it's more of a Hot Topic nightmare. Like, it was not what I wanted to see. By the same token, you know, I haven't seen him in the role yet, so I have no way to speak. I have no way to judge at this point.
See, I absolutely love those suicide pictures because I instantly saw like the Dirty Dozen. I saw like
what it could be.
Seven Samurai. I saw like, especially when it's filmed. I never look at publicity photos as anything other than here's a glossy shot of something.
Yeah.
When you put
I
it
thought
into
Margot Robbie looked awesome. I will say.
Margot Robbie looked amazing, and that's like. And then I had read like 3-4 weeks ago that she's going to be in all these different Harley Quinn outfits. So immediately fans are like, "Why does she look like this?" It's like, why don't you relax? Why don't you wait until you see the movie? Everyone's going ballistic and stuff, and it's like, you know.
I think if you know his work too,
Yeah.
it sort of fits into the tone of his films. But I don't want to go down too far down that rabbit hole. But I mean, I do, but we will later. I want to talk about this as sort of a love letter to the film that wasn't, because I walked out of that so desperate to see this movie. I never will, but I think that was what you guys were aiming for, right? Like,
Very much so.
I don't know if it would have been good. It would have been insane.
And beautiful.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
there are certain elements that I find so, like potentially Nick Cage's take on the character, but also there is a character that I won't talk about because I want people to see it, that is with him his whole life, that I thought was one of the most fascinating additions to this lore.
We love that story.
Yeah.
We love that story. And I think I look at this now.
Sorry to be so evasive.
No.
Go
I mean,
see the movie.
it is a cosmic fairy tale.
Yeah.
A superhero cosmic fairy tale, which would have had this beautiful, and everyone's like, Tim Burton, he's so gothy and dark, and this, and this would have been that film that's bright and light and fun. So I mean, it wouldn't have been like goofball camp like Batman and Robin, but it would have definitely had humorous elements. You had Kevin Spacey and Christopher Walken as Lex Luthor and Brainiac, and at one point they were going to fuse, and you know, that's what I mean. Like, people are like, well, what if the movie got made now? It can't get made now. It stopped then because all these ideas, nothing was ever figured out. So at one point there was like Brainiac and Luthor, where heads were together like the incredible two-headed transplant. They were arguing like, what do you mean? I don't understand. You fight Superman.
Who
I
wouldn't
did
want to
fight
see
you.
that?
I want to see. I want to see that.
Right?
Yeah.
I want to see that so bad.
Yeah.
And then the other version was their heads combined, and sometimes Christopher Walken's head would come out like, almost like Hitchhiker's Guide.
Yeah. Oh.
Like pop out of.
And you'll get to see a lot of the concept art that you know exactly displays that and the concepts that they were going for with that idea. And then also going back to Tim Burton's take, this was a movie where he was going to be able to exercise a muscle that we hadn't really seen up till that point. You know, everybody had this perception he was dark and brooding, and this really would have had that, you know, much lighter sort of
really fun.
fun
to it.
Yeah.
You guys, I remember watching as the process was going along, and it really evolved over time, and sort of like as you started to get more and more people on board, and finally Tim Burton, kind of like, which was amazing, and then this awesome footage that you guys will see that is so revealing about the actor's process in this costume, sort of these costume fittings. But Nick Cage, poor guy, never got on board with this project in particular because I think he's been so burned by the response of the internet. I even interviewed him for a small film, I think like a year and a half ago, and I asked him about it, and and he just looked so defeated, and he was like, the thing is, whatever I say, the internet is going to take that and make something out of it, and it just gets he basically was like, it just gets really hard. So I want to talk to you guys about what does his absence, you think, mean or not for your movie, and what do you think of sort of what's happened to this guy over time?
Well, I mean, I have very strong opinions about this. I know John feels similarly, but I mean, Nicolas Cage is one of our absolute finest actors ever, and we are both huge fans of his. And we'd pursued him for quite some time to be in this. We were in contact with his manager for a year, and it was a little bit of this kind of cat and mouse game for a while. Initially, his manager said he doesn't want to talk about the past. So we knew that he was gun shy from the beginning.
Yeah.
But we invited his manager to come and see a rough cut at one point, and his manager said, "I think Nick is going to really love this. It's really all about the art and the and the creative drive of what this film would have been. It's obviously not a piece that's going to deride him in any way." So, but at the same time, if you go on Twitter, if you search Nicolas Cage on the internet, as we all know, the things you see are not Nick Cage the actor. He's been turned into some complete other thing.
It feels like bullying
It
at
is
a certain
bullying,
point.
yeah.
Well, you know what it is? It's ignorance.
Yeah.
Most of the people who are making fun of Nick Cage have never actually seen a real Nick
That's
Cage
really
movie.
key.
The truth of it is they've seen a series of clips, not the bees, not this. They've seen a series of clips of films that he's done that are easy to make fun of.
Yeah.
So what the reality of the situation is, and we've experienced this quite a few times at different conventions, a lot of younger people or just ill-informed people come up and be like, "Oh, Nick Cage, I don't like him, this and that." And I'm like, did you ever see Raising Arizona, Wild at Heart, Vampire's Kiss, Adaptation?
There's a marker.
New Orleans, Port of Call,
Moonstruck.
Bad Lieutenant,
Yeah.
Moonstruck.
Well, there's a marker. It's very
Con Air.
It's
Yeah.
very
Face Off.
There's like a line. There's a delineation, and the delineation movie
Leaving
is
Las Vegas.
National Treasure.
Yeah.
National Treasure and on. Those are the movies that millennials have seen. They don't bother to go back and see anything that happened before that. So what they know of him are super cuts on YouTube, National Treasure, and everything that happened
Ghost
after
Rider.
that.
Yeah.
that's the
So
other thing,
they're not mining IMDb to look at his filmography and go, "Oh, I need to see this and this. They're,
I just say, like, Raising Arizona is like one of my favorite
it's
movies
amazing.
ever.
Birdie is one of my
Yeah.
favorites.
Yeah,
There's
there's
so many
the
incredible
list
roles.
is almost endless.
Bad
he's-
Lieutenant.
Yeah, he's been in
Incredible.
so many amazing films. So to see that actor on almost a daily basis while I was trying to raise money for this film,
Yeah.
that's exactly when that internet meme explosion started.
Yeah.
Was because he was still talking about like people. I remember he was interviewed for The Croods, and that I have a little moment of that in our film, of talking about what he would have done with Superman and Tim Burton and this and that. But like literally a month and a half later, the internet exploded with like his face on a cat, like just shots of him as a monkey, weird animations.
It was already
just-
happening before
It was
that,
happening, but
but
I'm
yeah.
saying it just went ballistic, like Insano style, for about a year solid,
Yeah.
where it was like, wow, this is crazy. And I think that's when he personally felt like he was being attacked by the planet.
Bottom line, we don't blame him at
No,
all
not at
for
all.
not doing it. And I'll say this: the movie does not suffer for not having
It doesn't.
him be interviewed, because he's all over this film in the Superman suit, talking about the character with Tim Burton. You're going back in time and you're watching him actually work on the
so
role.
instead of
which is
getting
more
someone
valuable
talking
than
about
anything else.
instead of interviewing him talking about what he would have done or could have done, we actually have him talking about him as Superman, as Clark Kent, what they're going to do, which to me is far more powerful because it's Tim Burton and Nick Cage captured 15 years ago while they were making the film. And that's the process.
It's amazing to watch him work it out as he's putting on the costume and figure out, how he can tap into what this character is all about, what's driving him. I think it's so easy to kind of make fun of actors for doing their actor thing, but that's how you get good art. I mean, they have to go through that process. It's really so interesting. I want to talk, so speaking of art, I think that there's a lot of people, speaking of art, there's a lot of people that I think look at what you guys have done and aspire to it, but maybe have no sense of sort of what it actually takes and the challenges and things like that. So I want to have you guys talk about that a little bit, just starting with a Kickstarter. This is really independent filmmaking, which
Definitely.
is so rare,
Yeah.
by the way. It just doesn't really happen anymore because it can't.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I
let's-
mean, like I came at this as like, well, I had just done a Kickstarter the year before for this Grimm Fairy Tales, an animated adult cartoon. I was like, had been working on Metalocalypse and Venture Brothers, and a lot of other like adult style cartoons, but I was like a big fan of the 80s cartoons, like Heavy Metal, a movie that was R-rated, only for adults. And I'm like, how could they make a movie in 1981 that's R-rated and animated, and I live in 2000 at that time, 2012,
And nobody will take the
and no
chance.
one will let me
Yeah.
do this. No one will. I'm like, there's something wrong here, and I am going to fucking attack it. So that was my initial drive, was out of just the pure creative anger of like, I'm going to make something that is only for adults. So we made it. It successfully raised $175,000. We made this pilot. It's sitting at Zenescope. I don't know what they're going to do with it, but I made it. I don't own it. So the next thing I did was like, I'm going to own the next thing I do, so no one can like decide what they want to do with it. I'm doing what I want. So that whatever it was going to be. So when I talked with Holly, I was like, I'm going to try to make a documentary about this Superman Lives project. She was behind it. She was like, try it out on Kickstarter. And
well, I knew for a fact there was interest from all different directions on this subject matter because, anytime we mentioned it or talked to anyone about it, they were like, "Oh my God, I would love to know more about that," because all that was on the internet was just a sliver of the truth. Which now we've got the entire archive at our disposal to tell that story. But yeah, it was just like you've got Superman, you've got Nick Cage, you've got Tim Burton, you've got Kevin Smith, you've got all these angles. So many people are interested in these things from various, fan bases. And so it was a litmus test, and we busted our asses, not just on one Kickstarter campaign, but we did a fan-backed campaign as well. When we ran out of money the first time.
Literally, I thought I could get it done in 8 months because I'd been used to doing narrative scripts and directing that. So I didn't realize how hard it was going to be to actually get out there and try to get those interviews and contact those people and get through all the giant walls of, that you can't just walk up to Tim Burton. It just doesn't happen. No. So it took a very long time to get to, even Kevin Smith. Everyone was like,
patience.
Kevin Smith should be easy. I keep getting all this like, man, how come you haven't talked to Kevin Smith? Yeah. I was like, hey, man, he's super busy, man. He's making like movies, podcasts. He's making all kinds of television shows. So once once you get Kevin Smith, you'd announce it and be like, hey, we got Kevin Smith. Oh, when are you going to get Tim Burton? It was like never
the downside
satisfied.
of a project like this, because of the subject matter, I think, is the fact that we are so used to getting our superhero movies now. So I think because we had Superman, we had Nick Cage, we had Tim Burton, all these things, people think, well, why isn't it here yet? It's like, we were a year into the process. Well, I've been waiting for it for 10 years. Like, actually, this whole process has been
we
2.5
just started
years total.
From beginning to now, it's only been 2.5 years.
Which is again, I don't think people I understand, that's really quick for a documentary.
Very fast.
Takes a long time to make a good documentary.
Yeah.
This is a great documentary. I love it. I think that it really serves as one of these great inside looks at Hollywood that are, there are some wonderful documentaries about Hollywood. The Kid Sees the Picture.
Love that one.
So on like that. But I think you guys are going to love it. If you're interested in superhero movies, if you're interested in this kind of this project, which you should be, because it's so crazy. And in Hollywood, it serves sort of all of those purposes. So let's talk about where the people can see it. You're going on tour now, showing in select theaters all over the country. Can find out about that on your website?
You can find out about it on our Facebook page and our Twitter, and we are in the process of setting up our website to be able to offer pre-orders for the DVD and for the Blu-ray and for VOD.
Yeah, so if you just go to @TDOSLWH. No, it's just TDOWS. No, I'm sorry.
Let me help.
Let the producer do it.
Twitter, it's @TDOSLWH. It's every letter of the title of the movie. Make it easy. And the website is TDOSLWH.com, and that's where you'll be able to find.
And what's the Facebook page?
The Facebook page is The Death of Superman Lives, What Happened.
Yeah, so all those social media areas is where we'll be making announcements. The next place it's screening is in London at the MCM London Comic Con on the 22nd and 23rd. So you can, if you're a UK sweaty, you can get your tickets right now. Pre-order those tickets, get your tickets now. And then we're going to be coming back here. Obviously we're not going to London forever. We're going to come back here in June and do a few more dates around some different states. We're definitely going to hit Chicago. We're definitely going to hit New York. And then July 9th at San Diego Comic-Con, we'll have a booth there, and we're releasing it digitally all over the world. So it'll be released digitally. You can buy it online at our website.
At your website, right? They can download it
on
there.
On July 9th, if you go to www.tdoslwh.com, that's where you can actually order it right then and watch it.
We're also going to have some awesome merch for
Yeah.
for sale.
Yeah.
So we'll
Look
be
at this
selling these
poster.
awesome posters.
Yeah.
Posters.
We'll have T-shirts, we'll have patches, we'll have stickers, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I really wanted to rock it on the posters because specifically, you know, doing the AMC movie talk, which I started doing with Roth many like 2.5 years ago.
2 million years ago.
Yeah. It's like, to me, I love films, and for me, a movie poster is a part of the equation. And I've been sick of just these like Photoshop faces, giant heads and stuff. And I was like, and I complained vocally about it, so you damn better know that my poster is not going to be that. So I was like, we're making like a Struzen style
Yeah,
poster.
so huge shout out to our poster artist. His name is Nick Runge, and he is a protege of Drew Struzan, and he did an amazing job. So.
Yeah, so love the
Props to him.
poster. I hope you dig the movie. So check it out July 9th.
Make sure to do it. It's really good. You're going to love it. Thank you guys so much.
Thank
You're
you,
welcome,
Roth.
Roth. Thanks.